And right now it's time for that time when we talk to our special guest. Tonight our special guest is Jacqui Beilby from the Public Trust. A will is one of the most important legal documents you can have, and the Public Trust are New Zealand's largest provider of wills. Have you got yours sorted? Jacqui Beilby, welcome to The Beat Goes On.
Thank you for having me.
Public Trust. Wow, we are honoured today to have the Public Trust in here, aren't we? Us baby boomers, Jacqui, you're here today to get a few messages across to us baby boomers. We think we're going to live forever. We just never think that one day we're just going to go bang, and we haven't done a will, we haven't done anything, we haven't caught up with anybody, and we leave it all to you people. Thank God we've got you people to look after us, when we die.
Yes, we're often called in the event people haven't made a will.
Yeah. So how often does that happen? We tend to think that people couldn't be that silly that they wouldn't make a will, but you'd be surprised, wouldn't you?
We find, there's a statistic around out there that says that 50% of adults in New Zealand don't have a will at all.
50%?
So I think...
I can't believe that. That is crazy, isn't it? 50% don't have a will at all.
And those people, some of them just don't want to confront the issue of death. Sometimes it is quite confrontational, having to think about what's going to happen when you're gone.
Yeah, I think that is it. You think, God, if I have to go and make a will today, that means I'm not going to be here anymore. You don't want to face that. Do you think that could be the reason?
I think that's part of the reason. Other people, I think, put it in the I'll get to it one day and just haven't got around to it. Yeah. Then you've got people who maybe have made a will and then popped it in their drawer for 20 odd years. And
nobody knows where that drawer is.
Well, no one knows where the drawer is, and when you do get out that will, it no longer reflects what
you feel,
what the person would have wanted. So just so important to have one and make sure it's up to date.
Now look, Jacqui, this is fascinating, but I know there's people out there that watch The Beat Goes On who don't even know what the Public Trust is. So what about a quick 30, 60 second, what is the Public Trust?
So Public Trust is a trustee company. We were established in 1873. Obviously, I haven't been around
since that time.
And so we were established back then to look after New Zealanders, those ones who couldn't look after themselves. So the widows and orphans, if you like. And so obviously things have changed,
haven't they? Yeah.
Over time, we've got the largest will bank in the country. And we write around 8,000 new wills
every year?
Updated wills every year.
Wow. And
we've got a couple of 100,000 customers in our wills bank. So it's very much our bread and butter, if you like, and something we specialise in.
And this is directed by an Act of Parliament, isn't it?
Yes, we're governed by the Public Trust Act, yes.
So what the government said was, we know it's going to happen. There's going to be X amount of people in New Zealand that never go and see a solicitor and write a will properly or fix up the way they want things left. So that's why they had to establish the Act. Is that right?
It was more around making sure that the people that could be taken advantage of weren't taken advantage of. So it was more around widows and orphans who were left behind, and unscrupulous individuals taking advantage. So it was around protecting them. But now, we're available for all New Zealanders.
That was a great word, wasn't it? Unscrupulous.
Unscrupulous.
Do you know an unscrupulous person?
Not at all.
I often think, how many unscrupulous people do we know? But they do turn up, don't they?
They do.
That's exactly
They do.
What you were going to say. So, okay, what's the first thing that, say, Jared Smith didn't? I'm even trying to think if I got one myself. I know I do. Yeah, I do have one, and I gave it to my daughter, but it's not run. It's not with a solicitor. It's just myself. So, is that enough just to write something and give it to your children, or do you think you should go to a solicitor, get it done officially, or come to the Public Trust?
I think it's you can't underestimate the value and importance of getting some advice.
Yeah.
And there are situations where a person may think that my family situation, what I want to do is quite simple and straightforward, so I'll just do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
When if they actually sat down with someone who's got a lot of experience in not only writing wills but administering them when the time comes, they're quite often made aware of things that they had no idea of. So I think that it's really important to get some advice and get an expert to draft it for you.
Yes, because let's take a silly example. Say a man had 2 farms, 3 ex-wives, 12 children, 5 houses, and he says, "Oh, it'll take care of itself." Can you imagine the mess that would result from that?
Yes, well, invariably we end up dealing with that.
Has something as silly as that ever happened? I'm sure it has.
Yes, it's quite interesting. A number of the clients whose estates I have administered, who didn't have wills, are incredibly wealthy.
Wow.
They just don't have any immediate family, and they obviously, for whatever reason, never got around to drafting a will. So we've got legislation that determines who benefits when you die without a will.
So they start the search for with this TV program's about, isn't it? They start the search for the...
Yes.
Look, I keep waiting for that to happen to me, but nobody ever contacts me.
I know, you and me both. You and me both.
Why isn't it not happening? But some people can, out of the blue, get hundreds of thousands of dollars, can't they?
I had an instance where I had a lady who was probably worth around $1 million, and it ended up being distributed amongst 3rd and 4th cousins. And we were talking from Wales to, New Zealand, all over the country, all over the world, sorry.
And if there were 10 of them, they each got 100,000. In the end, how many were there?
I think there were about 30.
30. Oh, it's like winning lotto, but then finding out that there's been 30 winners.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think what I have found is situations when I have talked to people who don't have wills, that they've somehow thought that things would just take care of themselves. Especially in situations where you've got a husband and wife. They just assume that everything would automatically go to the other, and that's not necessarily the case, because, as I said earlier, legislation determines who benefits. So it's just so important to make sure that you get to say who you want to benefit and not let legislation dictate.
Hey, I'll leave it to the public trust, it won't cost any money, but there is a charge.
Yeah, absolutely, as there would be with any legal firm that you engage to administer an estate, and the costs are often higher when you don't have a will. Right. We have a range of set fees, and everything else is on a time and attendance basis. I guess what I'm saying is, if you don't have a will, there's a whole lot of extra work that needs to go on, which wouldn't go on had you.
Right. Get a will written.
It ranges from $195 to $295, depending on who you appoint as your executor and trustee. And then we have a slightly lower charge if you're an existing customer and updating your will.
Now that, of course, is the will, Jacqui, but what's the next second most important thing that people should do?
I don't even know if it's the second most important thing. I think it's as important as a will. And that is, once you've got your will in place, you've talked about what's to happen when you're gone. What you need to do is think about what would happen if I was around but no longer able to manage things for myself.
So you could go into a coma, you could have a stroke.
Absolutely.
Baby boomer, this is baby boomer territory, a stroke,
absolutely.
So suddenly you can't do anything.
That's right. Or it might be that you're going off on a world trip for 3 or 4 months, and you need someone to manage an investment property, for example, back in New Zealand. So you're able to appoint someone to step in the breach. The really important thing is that if you don't have one and something does happen to you, an application needs to be made to the family court for someone to be appointed in that capacity. And that takes time and it costs money. Yes. A lot more money than it would to establish the documents in the first place.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great advice. So let's just go over it very quickly. You can walk into any office of the Public Trust and apply for that, and it's not a huge cost.
No, it's
What's
around.
its official title? What's it called?
They're called enduring powers of attorney.
Enduring powers of attorney.
And
Yeah.
so you have one that deals with your finances, so that's called property. It talks about property. And then you have one that deals with your personal care and welfare. So that's decisions about your personal care and welfare. So we've got a website that you can go and have a look
Oh,
at.
yeah, let's have that. That's
dubpublictrust.co.nz. So you can go there. That's got a whole lot of information about a range of services and the costs associated with that. And it's got our 0800 number on there, so you can ring and arrange an appointment at your nearest customer centre. We've got 26 of them nationwide.
Of course, we can't talk about everything today, Jacqui, but I'd love you to come back on the program in the future and you can go over other things. But what about the guy in the street? We see him, he's the homeless person, man or woman, and they're 60 and they're living under the bridge. What happens when they drop dead and they've got nothing? You've got to look after them as well, don't you?
We do.
That must be a bit of a nightmare, trying to find out who they are.
Yeah, it can be a very interesting exercise. I've had a lot of dealings in the past with the police where they've contacted me. They haven't been able to locate next of kin. They may be struggling with identifying
Where do you start?
who the person is.
Where do you start?
Really, would be here all day if I if I talked about where we start.
Yeah.
Well, essentially, the first thing to do is to make sure that a funeral director, uplifts the body and that they're not sitting somewhere in a morgue.
Yes, exactly.
And
Can you be left in a morgue for years?
They don't usually like to leave you in there. So if anyone is unclaimed, then they usually get in touch with Public Trust.
Oh, I see.
And we go from there. So we would arrange for them to be uplifted by a funeral director, and then we'd go about establishing what assets they might have, if any.
So your job is quite fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
You know,
Yeah.
it ranges from right from the bottom of society to the top of society.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably why I'm still here at Public Trust after 16 years, is every day is different, and it's actually a real privilege helping people with these
So
sorts
it's not
of
just
things.
a job? You really love it?
It's a vocation, I think.
Wow, that's wonderful, isn't it? Now, you're not a baby boomer, are you, Jacqui? You're quite some way away from being a baby boomer?
Yes, potentially 20 to 30 years off that.
Well, we're going to make you an honorary baby boomer today, and we're going to say
Thank you.
thank you very much for coming in.
Pleasure.
Because doing a public service, I should say, for us baby boomers, you know, I mean, it's going to make your job a lot easier, isn't it, if everybody gets these things all sorted out. Before we go, who is the beneficiary of most of the wills? Who's making? It used to be the Salvation Army.
The choice of charities is actually getting a lot wider.
Really?
I think you're right, it used to be predominantly 2 or 3, and things are changing. And also we do find that some clients are choosing, rather than leaving funds outright to a charity, looking to establish some sort of charitable trust through their
Like
will.
the ASB Community Trust.
For
Really?
example.
Oh, what a good idea.
And that's a perpetual charitable trust, so it goes on infinitum, and it benefits the the charities that you nominate, and you can specify how the funds are to be used.
It's a way of getting your name out there forever and ever, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, imagine if you had 30 million, put it into one of those trusts, and kept feeding it every year with a top up. You know, your name would be out there forever, wouldn't it? Because it never stops.
No.
Wow. I don't think I'll be doing one of those somehow,
Really?
Jacqui. No, I'm about $499,000 short of the target.
Well, you're ahead of me.
Jacqui, we're going to see you again.
Thank you.
Great to talk to you. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much. Bye-bye.